What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest comedians sits down for what should be a lighthearted interview, only to find himself facing off against one of television's most formidable hosts in a battle that would leave the entire studio speechless? This is the story of the day. Kevin Hart walked onto The View expecting laughs, but instead found himself in the fight of his career against Whoopi Goldberg herself. Before we dive into this incredible confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really went down that day. The morning started like any other at The View studios in New York City. Kevin Hart arrived early, his usual energetic self, cracking jokes with the production crew and taking selfies with excited staff members. He had been booked to promote his latest comedy special, and everyone expected the typical Kevin Hart experience, full of self-deprecating humor and animated storytelling that had made him one of America's most beloved comedians. But as Kevin settled into the guest chair, adjusting his suit jacket and flashing that million-dollar smile to the audience, something felt different about Whoopi Goldberg's demeanor. While the other co-hosts, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, and Sononi, chatted pleasantly during the commercial break, Whoopi sat stone-faced, her arms crossed, barely acknowledging Kevin's presence. The cameras rolled, and Whoopi opened with what seemed like a standard introduction. "We're here with comedian Kevin Hart, who's got a new special out," she said, her voice lacking its usual warmth. "Kevin, thanks for being here, I guess." The awkwardness was immediate. Kevin, ever the professional, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, thanks for having me, Whoopi. I think you're excited to have me here. I can tell by that enthusiastic introduction," he said with a nervous laugh, gesturing toward her with both hands. "Oh, I'm thrilled," Whoopi replied, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Really thrilled to sit here with someone who thinks comedy means making fun of people who can't fight back." The other co-hosts exchanged glances. This wasn't in the script. Joy tried to intervene with a light comment about Kevin's upcoming projects, but Whoopi wasn't having it. No, let's talk about this," Whoopi continued, leaning forward in her chair. "Kevin, you've built your entire career on being the little guy, the underdog, right? But lately, it seems like you're punching down instead of punching up. What's that about?" Kevin's smile faltered for just a moment before he composed himself. "Whoopi, I think you might have me confused with someone else. My comedy comes from my own experiences, my own struggles. I make fun of myself more than anyone else." "Do you though?" Whoopi shot back, her voice rising slightly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've forgotten where you came from. You're making jokes about people's appearances, their disabilities, their struggles. That's not comedy, Kevin, that's just mean." The audience sat in stunned silence. This was not the jovial interview they had expected. Kevin shifted in his seat, his hands gesturing as he tried to explain himself. "Whoopi, I respect you, I really do, but I think you're way off base here. Comedy has always been about finding humor in difficult situations. That's how we cope. That's how we heal. I would never intentionally hurt anyone intentionally." Whoopi's voice cracked like a whip. "So, you're saying all the hurt you've caused is just accidental. That makes it okay." Joy tried once more to redirect. "Maybe we could talk about Kevin's charitable work," she suggested weakly. "Charity work?" Whoopi scoffed, never taking her eyes off Kevin. "You mean the photo ops? The tax write-offs? Please, Joy, let's not pretend this is about charity." Kevin's face was beginning to flush. His legendary cool was starting to crack under Whoopi's relentless assault. "You know what, Whoopi? I came here thinking we were going to have a conversation, maybe even a fun one, but you're clearly here to attack me for reasons I don't understand." "Oh, you don't understand?" Whoopi leaned back in her chair, a cold smile spreading across her face. "Let me help you understand. Kevin, you represent everything that's wrong with Hollywood today. You're a sellout who's forgotten his roots, forgotten his people, forgotten what real struggle looks like." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Kevin's hands clenched into fists on his knees, and for the first time in the interview, his voice carried an edge of real anger. "My people? Who exactly are my people, Whoopi? Because last I checked, I'm a black man from Philadelphia who grew up with nothing and worked his way up through comedy clubs and rejection letters. So, please enlighten me about what I've forgotten." "You've forgotten what it means to be authentic," Whoopi fired back. "You've forgotten what it means to represent something bigger than yourself. All you care about now is your brand, your empire, your money. You're not a comedian anymore, Kevin, you're a corporation." Sarah Haynes tried to jump in with a question about Kevin's family, but both Kevin and Whoopi ignored her completely. This had become a two-person battle, and neither was backing down. "A corporation?" Kevin's voice was getting louder now, his Philadelphia accent becoming more pronounced as his anger built. "You want to talk about corporations, Whoopi? You want to talk about selling out? You've been on this show for years, collecting checks, playing it safe, never taking real risks. At least I'm still out there performing, still connecting with people, still taking chances." The accusation hit its mark. Whoopi's eyes flashed with fury, and she leaned forward aggressively. Taking chances, is that what you call it? Because from where I sit, it looks like you're taking the easy road. Kevin. Making jokes that don't challenge anyone, don't change anything, don't matter. My comedy doesn't matter. Kevin stood up partially from his chair before catching himself, and sitting back down. Tell that to the millions of people who find joy in what I do. Tell that to the families who come to my shows and laugh together. Tell that to the people going through hard times who find a moment of happiness in my work. Happiness. Whoopi's laugh was sharp and humorless. You call that happiness? That's not happiness, Kevin. That's distraction. That's helping people avoid dealing with real problems instead of facing them. The studio was dead quiet, except for the hum of the cameras and the sound of Kevin's breathing, which was becoming more labored as his frustration mounted. He looked around at the other co-hosts, searching for an ally, but found only uncomfortable faces avoiding his gaze. You know what your problem is, Whoopi? Kevin said, his voice now steady but filled with controlled anger. Your problem is that you've been sitting behind this desk for so long, you've forgotten what it's like to actually perform. You've forgotten what it's like to stand on a stage with nothing but a microphone and try to make people laugh. You've forgotten what it's like to risk failure every single night. Whoopi's response came like a thunderclap. Risk failure. Kevin, you haven't risked anything in years. You play the same character in every movie, tell the same jokes in every special, appeal to the same safe audience every time. You're not risking failure. You're guaranteeing mediocrity. The words seemed to physically hit Kevin. His mouth opened and closed as he struggled to find a response. The other co-hosts looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. Even the usually unflappable Joy Behar appeared shocked by the intensity of the confrontation. Kevin finally found his voice, but it was different now. Quieter, but somehow more dangerous. Mediocrity. You want to talk about mediocrity? Whoopi, let's talk about your movie career. Let's talk about your comedy career. When's the last time you did anything that mattered? When's the last time you took a real risk? The challenge was thrown down, and Whoopi picked it up without hesitation. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but every word carried the weight of years of industry experience and barely contained rage. I've been taking risks since before you knew what a microphone was. Little man, I've been fighting battles and breaking barriers while you were still figuring out how to get a laugh without offending anyone. Don't you dare question my legacy. The word legacy hung in the air like a loaded weapon, and Kevin Hart's face went through a transformation that the studio audience would never forget. His usual animated expressions disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. When he spoke again, his voice carried a quiet intensity that made everyone lean forward. Legacy, Kevin repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. You want to talk about legacy? Whoopi, your legacy is sitting behind this desk, agreeing with whatever's popular, never taking a real stand on anything controversial. You've become everything. You used to fight against. Whoopi's face darkened, but Kevin wasn't finished. He was finding his rhythm now, and years of quick wit and sharp timing were coming to his defense. I remember watching you when I was young, Kevin continued, his voice gaining strength. You were fearless. You said things that mattered, things that needed to be said. But now you're just another voice in the echo chamber telling people what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. How dare you, Whoopi hissed, her composure finally cracking completely. How dare you sit there and lecture me about courage when you've spent your entire career playing it safe? You think making height jokes and talking about your wife is brave. You think that's comedy. At least I'm honest about who I am. Kevin shot back, standing up from his chair this time and not sitting back down. I don't pretend to be some deep intellectual philosopher. I don't act like every joke I tell is going to change the world. I just try to make people laugh, and apparently that's a crime now. Sunny host attempted to restore some order. Maybe we should take a break, and she began. But Whoopi cut her off with a sharp gesture. No break, Whoopi declared, her eyes never leaving Kevin's face. We're going to finish this conversation right here, right now. Kevin thinks he's honest. Let's see how honest he really is. The audience was completely silent now, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. The cameramen kept rolling, unsure whether they should stop or keep capturing this explosive moment. You want honesty? Kevin asked, his voice rising. Again, here's some honesty for you. Whoopi, you're jealous. You're sitting there attacking me because you can't stand the fact that I've been more successful in the last 10 years than you've been in the last 20. The accusation hit the studio like a bomb. Joy Behar audibly gasped, and Sarah Haynes put her hand over her mouth, but Whoopi didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, and that smile was more terrifying than any anger she had shown. Successful, she said, her voice dropping to an almost conversational tone that somehow felt more menacing than shouting. Kevin, you measure success in dollars and box office numbers. I measure success in impact, in change, in actually meaning something. Impact. Kevin laughed, but there was no humor in it. What impact? What change? You sit here every day preaching to people who already agree with you. That's not impact, that's just noise. Whoopi stood up slowly, her chair rolling backward. Her full height, she commanded the stage in a way that made even Kevin, despite his defiant stance, take a small step back. "N.I.S.," she repeated, her voice beginning to build again. "You think my voice is noise. You think the battles I've fought, the barriers I've broken, the young people I've inspired, you think that's all just noise. I think you're living in the past," Kevin replied, but his voice was less steady now. "I think you're so busy talking about what you used to be that you've forgotten to keep being it." The words seemed to unleash something primal in Whoopi. Her professional demeanor completely evaporated, replaced by raw, unfiltered emotion. "You little arrogant, spoiled child," she snarled, pointing a finger directly at Kevin's face. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've endured, what I've overcome to get where I am. You vaulted into this industry during the easy times and think you understand struggle." Kevin's eyes flashed with genuine anger now. "Easy times? You think anything about my journey has been easy? You think growing up poor in Philadelphia was easy? You think getting rejected by every comedy club in the country was easy? You think building a career from nothing was easy compared to what I went through?" Whoopi shot back. "Compared to what my generation had to face. Yes, Kevin, it was easy. You had doors open for you that we had to break down with our bare hands. And instead of being proud that those doors are open, instead of celebrating that things are better now, you want to tear down anyone who walks through them," Kevin replied, his voice carrying years of frustration. "You want everyone to suffer, the way you suffered, and that's not inspiring, Whoopi. That's just bitter." The word bitter seemed to push Whoopi over an edge that no one in the studio knew existed. Her voice rose to a level that made the sound technicians we see bitter. "You think I'm bitter? I'm disappointed, Kevin. I'm disappointed that with all the opportunities you've had, with all the platforms you've been given, with all the influence you wield, this is what you choose to do with it. Nothing, absolutely nothing, meaningful." Kevin took a step closer to Whoopi, close enough that the cameras had to adjust to keep both of them in frame. His voice dropped to match hers, creating an atmosphere so tense that the studio audience seemed to be holding their breath collectively. "You want to know what's meaningful, Whoopi? Making a single mother laugh after working 3 jobs. Making a kid who gets picked on at school feel better about himself. Bringing families together for 2 hours where they can forget about their problems and just enjoy each other's company. That's meaningful to me." "That's not meaningful," Whoopi replied dismissively, waving her hand as if swatting away his words. "That's just entertainment. Meaningful comedy challenges people, makes them think, forces them to confront uncomfortable truths. Your comedy is just comfort food for people who don't want to think." "And your comedy was what, exactly?" Kevin asked, his tone becoming sharper. "Because I remember your stand-up, Whoopi, and it wasn't exactly changing the world either. It was funny. It was good. But don't act like you were some revolutionary comic genius." The personal attack on her comedy seemed to hit Whoopi in a way that all the previous insults hadn't. Her face went through a series of expressions from shock to hurt to pure rage, all in the span of a few seconds. "At least my comedy had something to say," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. "At least I used my platform to talk about things that mattered, to shine a light on injustice, to give voice to people who didn't have one." "And now," Kevin pressed, sensing he had found a weak spot, "what are you giving voice to now? Corporate, talking points, network-approved opinions. When's the last time you said anything on this show that actually challenged anyone?" Joy Behar made one final attempt to intervene. "Guys, maybe we should," she started, but both Kevin and Whoopi turned to her with such intensity that she immediately fell silent. "You know what your problem is, Kevin," Whoopi said, turning back to face him fully. "Your problem is that you think success means you don't have to grow anymore. You think because people laugh at your jokes, you don't need to evolve. You don't need to challenge yourself. You don't need to use your voice for anything important. And your problem," Kevin replied, matching her intensity, "is that you think tearing other people down somehow builds you up. You think because you paid your dues, everyone else should suffer, too. You think because you struggled. Struggle is the only way to earn respect." The confrontation had reached a fever pitch with both participants standing face to face, their voices raised, their gestures becoming more animated and aggressive. The other co-hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to call for security or just let this unprecedented moment play out. "I don't think struggle is the only way to earn respect," Whoopi said, her voice now at full volume. "But I do think you have to earn it, and you haven't earned mine. You've earned money, you've earned fame, you've earned box office success, but you haven't earned respect from anyone who actually understands what this business is supposed to be about." The statement was so dismissive, so completely devastating in its delivery that Kevin actually stepped backward as if he had been physically pushed. His face went through a range of emotions, settling finally on something that looked like a mixture of hurt and determination. "You know what, Whoopi," he said, his voice suddenly calm in a way that felt more ominous than all his previous anger. "I came here today thinking I was going to have a conversation with someone I respected, someone whose career I had admired, someone whose opinion actually mattered to me. He paused, looking directly into her eyes with an intensity that made the entire studio feel the weight of the moment. But I see now that person doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. The words, maybe she never did, seemed to echo in the stunned silence. Whoopi's face went still, as if Kevin had delivered a blow she hadn't seen coming. When she spoke again, her voice carried pure venom. "You arrogant little nobody," she spat, pointing directly at Kevin's chest. "You think you can come into my house and disrespect me like that?" Kevin didn't back down. "Your house. This is a television studio where you're paid to have conversations, not ambush guests. This is me trying to teach you about responsibility." Whoopi snarled. "The only thing you're teaching me is why people are tired of hearing from you. This is exactly why your movie career died. Why the only place that will have you is behind this desk." A personal attack shattered Whoopi's composure completely. "How dare you talk about my career when you've never done anything that required real courage or artistry? What exactly have you done lately besides sitting here complaining about everyone else's success while your own career collects dust?" Kevin fired back. The studio was in chaos now. The audience was murmuring loudly, producers frantically gesturing from the sidelines. "I've used my voice to speak truth to power," Whoopi demanded, moving closer to Kevin. "No, you've used your voice to attack people who can't fight back. You've become a bully, Whoopi. You've become exactly what you used to stand against, a bully." Whoopi's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Let me tell you what a bully looks like. Someone who uses their position to punch down, who makes money off other people's pain." "You're describing yourself," Kevin replied without hesitation. "You're using your position to attack me because you know I can't fight back without looking like the bad guy. You wouldn't exist without people like me paving the way," Whoopi exploded. "And you've spent so much time looking backward that you've forgotten to keep moving forward," Kevin shot back. Joy finally stood up. "We need to take a commercial break, right now," but neither Kevin nor Whoopi acknowledged her. They were locked in battle. "You call making the same movie over and over work?" Whoopi laughed bitterly. "You're not working, you're just collecting paychecks." "At least I'm still collecting them," Kevin replied brutally. "When's the last time anyone offered you a leading role? When's the last time anyone cared what Whoopi Goldberg had to say?" Whoopi's face went white. Kevin began reaching for his microphone, the gesture sending a clear message. "You know what, Whoopi? I came here to promote my work and have a good time. I didn't come here to be lectured by someone so bitter about her own career that she can't stand to see other people succeed. Don't you dare walk away from me," Whoopi shouted. "That's exactly the kind of coward you really are." Kevin removed his microphone and placed it on the table. "I'm not running away. I'm choosing not to waste my time on someone who's forgotten what it means to treat people with basic decency." "This interview is over," Kevin announced. "I don't have to sit here and take this from someone whose best days are clearly behind her." "You can't just walk out," Whoopi lunged forward desperately. "This is exactly the privileged, entitled behavior I'm calling out." Kevin stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. "Real criticism comes from wanting to help someone improve. What you've done here isn't criticism, Whoopi, it's just cruelty, and I don't have time for cruelty in my life." With that, Kevin Hart walked off the view stage, leaving behind a studio full of people who had witnessed something unforgettable. Whoopi remained standing, chest heaving, watching him disappear into the wings. The silence that followed was deafening. The audience sat stunned, afraid any sound might break the spell of what they had just witnessed. So, what do you think really pushed Whoopi over the edge that day? Was it jealousy, frustration, or something deeper? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this.